So very good evening, everyone. Dr. Christian, are you there?
Hello, are you waiting for me?
Yes, sir. Can we start, sir?
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much for your invitation to participate to the jury. I'm very honored and happy to be with you and all the attendees of this meeting.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for joining. So we have total 5 participants who are going to present the poster. So our first participant is Sirians, who is going to present. So participants, total duration is 10 minutes, including question and answer. So please be specific. Please, Sirians, share your screen and start your presentation.
Yes. So, can you see my screen?
Yes, not yet. Just wait. Yes, Sirians, go ahead.
Yes.
I hope, Dr. Christian, is it visible to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So, shall I start?
Sirians, go ahead.
Yeah. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Shriyan Srivastav, and I'm really excited and glad to be here at SAI, 4th Annual Conference of SAI. And today, I would be presenting my work in the poster presentation, wherein I would like to tell what I did. And the title of my work that I did is in silico screening of compounds from plant and marine sources for inhibition of MK2 kinase. I have done this project under the supervision of Dr. Rakesh Kumar Singh from the Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology, 9th for Raebareli. So this is a this is a experiment that was alternative to the regular animal models, and so I tried to screen the compounds virtually using different methods. So talking about the abstract of the work that I did, I would like to talk about mitogen activated protein kinase. These are one of the many intracellular signaling cascades that respond to various types of extracellular stimuli. The MAP kinase pathway get activated by phosphorylation at different levels, and MK2, basically talking specifically about MK2, it is a kinase that is downstream to B38 MAP kinase and is activated by phosphorylation with ATP. The role of MK2 has been investigated in various types of chronic inflammatory diseases, and the investigation is also going on for COVID. The compound ATI-450 is a potential target and MK2 is being investigated in COVID pathology as well. Until now, there have not been any. There have been a lot of investigation for small molecule inhibitors. We have tried the researchers have tried to develop small molecule inhibitors, but the area of natural compounds have not been explored for MK2 kinase. Therefore, I use different types of in silico softwares that were freely available online to screen the potential compounds, and I got some really good results that could be utilized for further experimentation, thereby reducing the use of animals. Talking about the highlights of the protein that I used, basically the role of MK2 lies in that MK2 regulates the pro-inflammatory cytokines. The ATP binding site of MK2 is very deep and narrow. Only small planar molecules can bind to the ATP binding site, and the crystal structure of the MK2 protein that I used was resolved at 3.20 angstrom. Talking about the methods of the work that I did, basically what I did initially was I took a target protein structure from protein data bank that was 3R30. This is a protein chain wherein the ATP binding site was present of the MK2 kinase. Further, I use different types of libraries that are present freely to select marine and plant compounds using from literature review and Tanimoto coefficient search. Then I prepared the ligands, and I followed the procedure and performed docking studies using Autodock Vina 4.2 at the MK2 binding site. This docking was site selective, and the grid that I used was 20 units XYZ. Further, I analyzed the molecules for their ADME properties and the target prediction, and I got some really great results. The scheme to explore potential compounds. So initially, we reviewed the natural compounds that have been previously investigated for kinases based on the hypothesis that kinases share some degree of homology. Further, we docked these compounds and we ranked these compounds, the compounds that had good ranking were further projected to target prediction and ADME properties. Additionally, the compounds showing good binding affinity were also subjected to similarity search through Tanimoto coefficient search using IMPP80 database. All whatever softwares I used were totally available for free, and anyone can explore them. The results that I obtained from this study was that when I saw the binding affinities of the internal ligand CD2 that was bound to this protein 3R30, it came out to be minus 8.9 kilocal, that which is a very good binding affinity. Further, I used the tool compound PF3644022, that is a commercially available MAP MK2 inhibitor, and the binding energy came out to be minus 9.3, which was which actually validated that the binding and the interactions were possible. I further screened 166 compounds over a period of 4 or 5 months, and I shortlisted 4 compounds, that is dracorubine, crinaceatin K252C, and azotoxin. The binding energy of these were comparable as that to the internal ligand and were in the range of 11 to 9. When I saw these, when I visualized the interactions of the compounds of the tool compound, of the internal ligand, and of the natural compounds that I docked, what I saw that the type of interactions were different, but the amino acids which were interacting with this scaffold were similar, and most of the most favorable bonds, the most favorable amino acids that showed interaction with the ligand or the natural compound that we were investigating were methionine, cysteine at 140 amino acid site, so methionine at 138, threonine at 206, glycine at 93, lysine at 70, and so on. There were a lot of interactions, and thus we moved further with the ADME prediction of these 4 compounds and target prediction of these 4 compounds, upon which we realized that the probability of these compounds to target kinase is there, and thus I would actually like to conclude from this study that naturally derived compounds with diverse scaffolds have shown good binding affinity with MK2 kinase, and the results suggest that compound azotoxin, crinaceatin, and K252C can be used for further evaluation. Summarizing the result, I would like to just give me a moment, sir. I like to zoom the table. Summarizing the result, the compound crinaceatin had a great binding affinity of -10. The target prediction towards kinases was 40%. The ADM and drug likeness was favorable, and the same was for K252C and azotoxin. So what I wanted to conclude with this is that it is a really great study. I did not spend a lot of money. It was very commercially feasible, and it was accessible to everyone. Lastly, I would like to thank Dr. Rakesh Singh, Dr. Anup Kumar, Department of Pharmaceuticals, Ministry of Chemical Fertilizers, and NIPER Raebareli for all the support that they have provided in completion of this study. Thank you.
Thank you, Shreyans. Thank you very much. Now over to Dr. Christian.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Very clear. You have done a huge work, and the progression is very clear. It's what I like. I have a question, maybe.
Yes, sir.
If I can.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you can. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
The 3 products that you chemical that you selected, are they already used for some drug, or are they already on the market in some product?
Sir, from my knowledge, they are being investigated. They're not available in the market as of now. They're being investigated. They're in the preclinical and clinical development stages.
Okay, so it's a new application for the future. You have to find the good partnership to go further in the development.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, definitely. So, in fact, I'm looking forward to different types of studies as well right now on this, and we would be moving forward with this. My supervisor is working on this, and I'm positive that we would be, give out something really fruitful from this.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So now we are moving to next candidate. Next candidate is Rakesh.
Yes, sir.
Rakesh, Sriyansh, you stop sharing screen. Rakesh, you share your screen.
Yes, sir. I am sharing screen, sir. Sir, my screen is visible, sir?
Yes, it's visible to me. I hope it's visible to Dr. Christian also.
Yes, it is.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Rakesh, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. This is good evening to everyone. This is P. Rakesh Kumar. I am going to discuss about the study QSTR modeling for predicting reproductive and hepatotoxicity. My supervisor is Ashok Kumar Datsalia, sir. Department of Regulatory Toxicology, Naipur, Raebareli, India. Abstract of the study is determining the toxicity of chemical compounds is one of the essential steps in drug design. So far, animal models have been used for toxicity testing and are constrained by time, ethical issues, and financial burden. In this study, QSTR model was performed to develop a model for predicting reproductive and hepatotoxicity of unknown compounds. Target proteins used in this study are BRAF gene, also known as proto-oncogene, estrogen gene, estrogen receptor. Objectives of the study were to calculate the molecular descriptors for selected compounds, to select an appropriate genetic algorithm, to develop the best fit model for predicting reproductive and hepatotoxicity, to perform docking studies of the known and query compounds with validated target proteins. Coming to the methodology of the study, in the first step, data curation, we have collected IC50 values for the estrogen receptor and BRAF gene from different online databases like PubChem, Chembell, DrugBank, Toxnet. Then after, we have calculated molecular descriptors from chemical stretches for those chemical stretches with the help of Paddle descriptor software, eDragon software, ChemDes software. We have calculated 1544 molecular descriptors for both the models. Then after, statistical mapping of descriptors to a toxic endpoint is done with the help of DTC QSCR software. Then model validation, we have done internal validation and external validation. Next, coming to the applicability domain testing. Finally, model is developed. Now it will be used for testing query compounds. Results of the study was, firstly, 2D QSTR model and validation results for hepatotoxicity. We developed an equation for correlating the biological response with the descriptor. In this equation, there are three descriptors we have selected. Those three descriptors, the descriptor with negative sign indicates the negative contribution in the model development. Positive sign indicates the descriptor having more contribution in the model development. We have calculated internal validation parameters, leave one out result, external validation parameters. All these parameters are get passed according to the OECD validation criteria. Based upon the above results, model quality based on these results were good. 2D QSTR model and validation results for reproductive toxicity were, again, we have developed an equation. In this equation also three descriptors were there. These three descriptors are again with negative and positive signs that they are contributing negative and positive contribution in the model. We have calculated internal validation parameters, leave one out result, external validation parameters without scaling, after scaling. All these results are passed according to the OECD validation criteria. Model quality based on MAE based criteria was good. We also performed the external validation for this model. External validation we performed by taking the compounds which are not involved in this model development. In this model, for external validation, there is no systemic error present in both toxicities and prediction quality is good for both models. The mean absolute error after removing 5% test set objects with high residual values was found to be 0.06513 and 0.02364 for hepatotoxicity and reproductive toxicity respectively, which is surely acceptable. Error-based matrices we have followed for both the models, and for both the reproductive and hepatotoxic model, the model prediction quality was obtained was good. we determined response plot for those models. There is a linear relationship between the predicted and observed values were good in both models. Correlation coefficient of R square is 0.94 and 0.996 for hepatotoxicity and reproductive toxicity respectively. Cross-validated regression coefficient of Q square is 0.93 and 0.995 for hepatotoxicity and reproductive toxicity respectively. This is the response plot for hepatotoxic model. This is the response plot for reproductive toxic model. We also developed residual plots by subtracting the observed value minus predicted value. Now coming to the applicability domain. Applicability domain was defined as a structural outlier about a reliability about the chemical moiety. In this applicability domain for reproductive toxicity, only one compound in training set was considered as a structural outlier. Remaining all compounds in test set and external test set all are inside the domain. While coming to the hepatotoxic model, all are inside domain. All in training set, test set, and external test set, all compounds are inside domain. Now coming to the query compounds we have taken, 29 query compounds we have taken, and we have evaluated the applicability domain status for those 29 query compounds. Some compounds are outside the applicability domain, some are inside the applicability domain. The compounds which are outside the applicability domain are considered to be non-toxic, and compounds which are considered to be inside the applicability domain are considered to be toxic. We also performed docking studies for both the known toxicants and query compounds. Here we represented only the known toxicant docking studies. These two compounds are hepatotoxic, known hepatotoxicants. Their target was BRAF gene, and this image shows that there is a binding affinity between BRAF gene and ligand. Docking for reprotoxic model results are interpreted based on binding energy. These two compounds are known reproductive toxicants. Their target was estrogen receptor. Here this image shows that there is a binding affinity, a strong binding affinity between estrogen receptor and toxicant. Conclusion of this study was, we have in reproductive toxic model, we have selected 29 query compounds. In those 29 query compounds, 25 are inside the applicability domain, one is outside the applicability domain, one most active. One most active in the sense, based upon the docking studies, that one molecule have higher binding affinity with the target. In the hepatotoxic model, we selected 29 query compounds, 11 are inside the applicability domain, 18 are outside the applicability domain, 2 are most active. These two compounds are, according to the docking studies, these two compounds are mostly strongly binding affinity with the target, that is BRAF gene. By this in silico investigation, we have successfully developed QSTR model for hepatotoxicity and reproductive toxicity. The statistical matrices of the descriptors showed that the model is robust and statistically significant. Hence, from the study, we concluded that kynurenolic acid is non-toxic and its analogs are predicted as toxic due to structural change at the acid group. Finally, the authors thank the Department of Pharmaceuticals, Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, Government of India, and Director NIPER for support and resources. And sincerely thanks for giving me this opportunity to present my study for Dr. Anup Kumar sir and SAI conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rakesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Now over to you, Dr. Christian.
Thank you very much. Very clear. A little bit far from my expertise, the in silico, but it's very promising for the future to be able to replace the animal. I just have a question. Maybe I didn't catch it. You did. You said it. But if I well understood, you selected some unknown compounds, and you developed a predictive model. And after you tested your selected compound in your predictive model, my question is, to validate your models, how many compounds have you got used with? I suppose for all these compounds, you have already the in vivo data. So it's the size of the validation set which is my question, in fact.
for the query compounds, there are no in vivo data. These are, those are before synthesized, we are predicting their toxicity. But for these unknown compounds, with the unknown compounds, we have developed the model. For these unknown compounds, we have in vivo and in vitro data, sir.
Okay, so how many compounds, I'm sorry, but how many compounds you use with in vivo data?
31 molecules for hepatotoxic model and 60 compounds for reproductive toxic model we are used, sir.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So now we have next candidate, Meenakshi. Meenakshi, are you there? Rakesh, you stop sharing screen. Meenakshi,
yes, sir.
Yes, Meenakshi, share your screen.
So I'm unable to share the screen because it is mentioning that host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Just give me 1 minute. Yes, now I have made you host. Meenakshi, now share your screen.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to share?
Yes, sir.
Yes, share yours. Go ahead.
So is the screen visible?
Yes, it's visible to me. I hope it's visible
Yes.
to Dr. Christian also.
Exactly.
Yes, Meenakshi, go ahead.
All right. A very good evening to all the SI members, organizers, and all the attendees. My name is Meenakshi Gupta, and I am a third-year PhD scholar from Amity Institute of Pharmacy. I'm carrying out my research work under the supervision of Dr. Mariam Sarwat. Her lab mainly focuses on the anti-cancer and neuroprotective activity of herbal molecules. We have done the in silico screening of plant-derived natural compounds from Dava and Curcum to explore their anti-HCC activity. So, hepatocellular carcinoma, as we all know, is the major cause of cancer mortality throughout the world. Treatment with sorafenib, which is considered the first line management, prolongs the survival of patients by only 8 to 11 months and has various complexities associated with it. So we come up with the idea of evaluating the anti-cancer potential of a plant-based Unani formulation, Dava ul Curcum, and it is generally prescribed by Unani physicians for the patients having liver and gallbladder enlargement. It has components from 7 plants, namely cinnamon cassia, having a major chemical constituent, cinnamaldehyde and B-coumaric acid. The second biological compound is cinnamon zelanicum, having cinnamaldehyde. The third one is Symphobogan juangusa, having citrul as an active constituent. The fourth one is Crocus sativus, possessing crocin, quercetin, safranal, picrocrocin, camphophyrol as an important constituent. The fifth one is Commiphora vitae, possessing glucostriol as an active constituent. Sixth one is Nardistachys jetamansi, which has zetamanson and isovaleric acid. The seventh one is Sosoria lapa, which has dihydrocostus lactone as an active constituent. So we the objective of the study was to analyze the anti-cancer activity of Dava ul Curcum first as in using the in vitro approach, and then to gain the functional insight, we used in silico studies of the natural compounds which are present in Dava ul Curcum. So we followed the methodology first for the in vitro screening of Dava ul Curcum. We performed NTT assay, scratch assay, colony formation assay, and cell cycle analysis. And then for the in silico screening, we have used molecular docking and MD simulation studies. Moving to the results, when the cells were treated like both malignant and non-malignant cells, we have used. For malignant, we have used HepG2, Hep3b, and HUH7. And for non-malignant cells, we have used HEK293 and primary hepatocytes for comparison. So when these cell lines were subjected to different concentrations of Dava ul Curcum for 24 hours, and we quantified the result based upon the forms information, we observed that Dava ul Curcum was able to significantly reduce the cell viability of malignant cell, but it was very minimally affecting the viability of normal cells, like in particular HEK293 and primary hepatocytes. So we considered that the data is of interest as a drug is able to inhibit the viability or the activity of cancer cells, but is very minimally affecting the viability of the normal cells. Next, we observed the effect of davalcurcum on the wound healing assay of the Hep3B cells. Why Hep3B cells we have chosen? Because we have gained a very minimal IC50, or the least IC50 was observed in the Hep3B cells. So we carried out further experimentation on Hep3B cells. So we observed the effect of davalcurcum on the wound healing property of Hep3B cells, and we observed a significant reduction in the wound healing capacity of the cells which were treated with davalcurcum as compared to the cells which were treated with the vehicle, that was DMSO. So to further investigate the anti-cancer potential of davalcurcum on Hep3B, colony formation assay was carried out. Generally, cancer cells have the tendency to grow in colonies, and they contact with their neighboring cells, and when they lose this this connection with the adjacent cells, this leads to the death of these cells. So the similar pattern was observed by the colony formation assay when the cells were treated with IC30, IC40, and IC50 of davalcurcum. We observed a dose-dependent decrease in the colony formation assay of davalcurcum. Next, we have done the antioxidant activity of davalcurcum, and we determined this activity using DPPH assay and FRAP assay. In DPPH assay, we observed that davalcurcum has a similar effect as that of ascorbic acid, which is taken as positive control at a concentration of 30 microgram per ml, and as shown in the graph, it was observed that there is a dose-dependent antioxidant activity of davalcurcum. The similar results were obtained from the FRAP assay. Then the cell cycle analysis was done to determine in which stage of the cell cycle is arrested after treatment with davalcurcum, and we observed a significant increase in the cells which were present in the G2M phase. A significant decrease in the cells present in G0, G1 phase was observed, and a significant increase was observed in the cells which were in G2M phase. So we can deduce that the cell was arrested in the cell cycle was arrested in G2M phase. Now, to gain further insight of the activity of davalcurcum, we carried out in silico studies, and for that we docked 10 active constituents present in the 7 herbal components of davalcurcum, and after the docking, the preliminary in vitro screening and the ADMET profiling, and even the results were compared with the standard drugs, we observed that out of the 10 active constituents, Z-glucosterone was showing the best activity and was binding very well with the 4 selected proteins. So as shown in the figures, Z-glucosterone showed hydrogen bonding with asparagine 6 and 74, with azarine gene, glutamine 112 and serine 92 binded with amino acylase 1. Lysine 427 was binding with RB. Lysine 427 of RB1 gene was binding with glucosterone, showing hydrogen bonding, and there was a van der Waals interaction with the calreticulin protein. The results were validated by MD simulation studies as well, and we observed that for both the studies, like for the docking studies and for the MD simulation studies, there was a similar scaffold in which our molecule Z-glucosterone was binding with all the 4 proteins. So this table shows the binding affinity, and we observed that the binding energy was all in negative, and for RB1 protein, we observed a binding energy of negative 11. For azarine, it was negative 17, and for amino acylase, it was negative 100. For calreticulin, it was negative 8. Then the RMST deviation plot was observed. And for all the 4 selected proteins, we observed that the RMST plot showed a value less than 0.5 for all the proteins, showing a stable binding in the scaffold of the protein. So with all the findings, we can conclude that davalcurcum could be a novel candidate against HCC, and its component, particularly Z-glucosterone, as per our in silico study, can be explored further for the drug development and lead development. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Meenakshi. Thank you so much. So now over to you, Dr. Christian.
Thank you very much. Very interesting to mix in silico approach and in vitro approach. If I well understand, you have identified some compounds that could be particularly active, some compounds extract from the Dawa Ulk curcum plant.
Yes.
What will be the next step for you now? Because if you are convinced that this compound are very effective, maybe a future drug development is envisaged.
Yes, sir. Next, we will go for the in vitro studies of Z-Google-Steran, and also when we will be satisfied with that, then we will move for the in vivo studies of the same.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meenakshi. Now, next candidate is Aarti. So you can stop sharing.
Yes.
Aarti, are you there?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes. So you can share your screen. Yes, it's visible to me. I hope it's visible to Dr. Christian also.
Yes.
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 So
Can I start?
yes, Aarti, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Aarti Ashok, Junior Research Fellow at Sri Chitta Institute for Medical Sciences and Technology, working under the guidance of Dr. P.V. Mohan. The title of my poster is Organoleptic, a Novel Approach for Predicting Cytotoxicity. So, organoleptic technology presents an alternative method for predicting nanoparticle toxicity assessment, and is a promising technology that links the existing preclinical models with human physiological studies. The toxicity of nanoparticles is tested in animal and cell culture models to predict its effects in the human system. Due to the ethical concerns and species variation, animal models are reduced and cell culture models have been considered to provide cellular responses for decades. However, these models still lack the efficiency to the cyclic physiological response.
Aarti, yes, your voice is not clear. It's breaking.
So sorry, maybe my connection is not stable.
Now it's okay. Go ahead.
Hence, the organoleptic technology is predicted to bridge the gap between in vitro and in vivo environments. So, in this present study, the in vitro responses of cysteine-capped zinc oxide nanoparticles on A549 cells was investigated in conventional cell culture systems and a microfluidic device under a physiologically relevant flow rate. So, the methodology involved four parts mainly: the synthesis of nanoparticles, the characterization of the nanoparticles, and the conventional cell culture assays and the microfluidic assays. So the method for comparing the cellular responses of the nanoparticles treated cells using conventional cell culture system and microfluidic cell culture system was the main aim of the study. So in the conventional in vitro methods, we have used various assays like the MTT assay, lysosomal activity by neutral red uptake assay, LDH assay, intracellular ROS production by DCFH-DA assay, nitric oxide generation by Grease test, etc. Then the staining methods like the rhodamine colloidin for cytoskeletal stability, actinic orange assay for lysosomal membrane studies, JC1 staining for mitochondrial membrane, and adaptive staining for nuclear condensation were performed. So from the conventional assays, we could conclude that the concentration 160 microgram per ml was toxic to the cells. Hence, this concentration was used in the microfluidic cell culture to compare it with the normal static cultures. So in the microfluidic cell culture, the calcium AMPI was done to estimate the live and dead cells in the device. Lactose dehydrogenase release assay was done. Then the nitric oxide release was also measured. Then moving on to the staining techniques, we also performed rhodamine colloidin staining and lysosomal membrane integrity by activating orange on the chip. So moving on to the results, the microfluidic organoleptic device was designed to investigate the cellular uptake and toxicity of cysteine-coated zinc oxide nanoparticles under dynamic and static conditions. So as you can see here, we have performed various assays to compare the cellular responses with both conventional and multi-organ organ-on-a-chip approach. The 16-coated zinc oxide nanoparticles was performed in both static and dynamic conditions. The morphology changes in the static and dynamic conditions and without the particle treatments were visualized. The 16-coated zinc oxide nanoparticles treatment in static conditions demonstrated more cell than dynamic conditions, which is also visible in the live death staining by calcium AMPI. The occurring orange assay to visualize the variation in the lysosomal integrity exhibited a subtle change in the static nanoparticle treated cultures as compared to the dynamic nanoparticle treatment conditions. Static nanoparticle treated demonstrated more damage to the lysosomes. The rhodamine-Dapy staining of the cells in the device the rhodamine-Dapy also showed hello, am I audible, sir?
Aarti, your voice is breaking.
Sorry. So the rhodamine-Dapy staining of the cells in the device ensured a proper attachment of the cells on the walls of the microfluidic device. The static treatment of the 16-coated Sedano nanoparticles resulted in more damage to the cytoskeletal integrity than the dynamic conditions. However, under dynamic condition, the particle treatment resulted in decreased LDH release. So, the microfluidic study for the toxicity examination of 16-coated nanoparticles demonstrated that the toxicity induced by nanoparticles depends on the residence time, local concentration, and perfusion. The dynamic condition can reduce the residence time of a nanoparticle due to and thereby decrease their toxicity. The flow integrated nanoparticles induced in vitro can also provide more relevant cell responses. In static conditions, the nanoparticle can settle upon the cell, thereby increasing the local concentration, which may lead to increased cell death. Therefore, it is necessary to consider the residence time of the nanoparticle, the local concentration, and the flow conditions at the target cell while predicting the toxicity associated with the nanoparticle exposure. Hence, to conclude, the organ-on-a-chip technology can be a good alternative for animal experiments. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aarti.
Thank you. I'm really sorry, but the sound was very bad.
Yes.
It's a pity because your work is very interesting, and especially the effect of dynamic or static condition are interesting. I didn't catch up all what you said, but in one word, can you just remind me what is the best solution, static or dynamic, and why it is the best?
Pardon, sir? It's not clear.
I'm sorry.
I think Aarti has some network issue, sir.
Hello?
Okay.
Yes, Aarti?
Yes, sir, I'm here. My net connection is not stable.
You don't hear me? My question was just confirm, say me what is the best condition, static or dynamic?
Yes, sir, dynamic conditions.
Dynamic, and
of
why
course,
it is
dynamic conditions, because in static conditions, the nanoparticles tend to settle down and give more stress to the cells. But in the dynamic conditions, as it is moving continuously, there is no chance of settling of these particles, and the cells would grow more efficiently.
Thank you. I didn't hear all of your answer, but thank you, and it confirms the added value of microphysical system in dynamic condition, and thanks a lot, and sorry for the bad connection for you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Aarti. So now we have next candidate. Nidhi, are you there? Aarti, you can stop share your screen. Nidhi, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you share your screen.
Okay, sir.
Aarti, you stop sharing. Okay, yes.
Is it visible, sir?
Yes. It will take a little bit time. Just wait. Yes, it's visible to me, and I hope it's visible to Dr. Christian also.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening to one and all present here. I am Nidhi Sharma, second year PhD scholar from Amity Institute of Pharmacy, Amity University, Noida. I am here to present my research work entitled Protective Role of Camptoferol Altering ER Stress Signaling in Hepatocellular Carcinoma. I am carrying out this research work under the kind guidance of Dr. Mariam Sarwat and Professor Subhrajit Biswas. Now, talking about the background of the study, hepatocellular carcinoma is the most lethal primary liver cancer that accounts for about 80 to 90% of cancer-related mortality worldwide. Hepatitis B virus, hepatitis C virus, aflatoxin-contaminated food, alcohol abuse, and non-alcoholic fatty liver diseases, etc. are some of the risk factors that contribute directly and indirectly in the pathogenesis of HCC. Typically, HCC is usually diagnosed at an advanced stage, and many patients with advanced HCC are not eligible for curative therapies. Thus, the identification of a novel therapeutic approach for treating HCC is urgently needed. Camptoferol is a dietary aglycone flavonoid that is present in numerous plants, fruits, and vegetables such as aloe vera, Euphorbia pekinensis, broccoli, apple, and grapes, etc. It is known to selectively kill the tumor cells without affecting the normal cells. However, the killing effect of camptoferol on HCC and its underlying mechanism are still not clear. Camptoferol is well known for the diverse pharmacological activities, including antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, cardioprotective, neuroprotective, and anti-tumor, etc. Camptoferol is explored against various pathways such as mTOR, APK signaling pathways, etc. But is in cancer, but it is not yet explored against ER stress signaling pathway. So in this study, we are trying to target camptoferol against HCC via ER stress signaling pathway. The objective of my study is to compare anti-cancer potential of the saffron flower constituents, that is saffron petals, stamen, and stigma. We have completed this objective. In this objective, with the help of MTT assay, we have basically evaluated the anti-cancer potential of the three constituents of the saffron flower, and the results demonstrated that among all the constituents tested, saffron petal has shown better cytotoxic activity. So we have selected saffron petals for the use in subsequent study and eliminated the remaining constituents. Next, we have evaluated the anti-cancer potential of the secondary metabolites that are present in the saffron petals, and the secondary metabolites which we have tested were crocin and camptoferol. In between both the metabolites tested, camptoferol has shown better cytotoxic activity. So the second objective is to study the principal natural component of saffron petal, that is camptoferol, against hepatocellular carcinoma. The last objective is to identify camptoferol targeting molecule via computational analysis and their validation through in vitro studies. Now moving on to the methodology of the study, my entire research work is divided into two major categories: in silico studies and in vitro studies. Under in vitro studies, we have performed MTT assay, CRATCH assay, gene expression analysis of several apoptotic and ER stress related proteins. And computational studies, in computational studies, we have targeted camptoferol with several ER stress related proteins. Now moving on to the results, we initially investigated the effect of camptoferol on the cell viability of different cell lines. In this, we have in this liver cancer cells as well as normal liver cells that are our primary hepatocytes were exposed to the different concentration of camptoferol, and the results demonstrated that camptoferol significantly reduced the cell viability of the liver cancer cells while exerting no harmful effect or cytotoxic effect on the cell viability of primary hepatocytes. Among all the three cancer cell lines tested, Hep3B has shown greatest reduction in its cell viability. So on the basis of this, it can be concluded that Hep3B cell lines are more sensitive to the camptoferol treatment. So we have selected Hep3B cell lines for use for subsequent use in or use a subsequent experiment to determine its potential mechanism of action in the treatment of hepatocellular carcinoma. Next, we evaluated the effect of camperferol on the migration of liver cancer cells. Cell migration were assessed with the help of scratch assay or wound healing assay to determine the anti-migratory effect of camperferol on liver cancer cells. So the results demonstrated that camperferol significantly inhibited the migration of liver cancer cells. Now coming to the results of computational studies, in computational studies, we have selected several proteins that plays a vital role in ER stress-related pathway. And among all the selected proteins, camperferol has shown wonderful binding affinity with PERK and IRE1 alpha. PERK and IRE1 alpha are the proteins that plays a major role in endoplasmic reticulum stress pathway and causes cell death either by apoptosis or autophagy. So the binding affinity we observed in case of PERK was minus 9.1 kilocalories per mole, and in case of IRE1 alpha, the binding affinity was found to be minus 7.2 kilocalories per mole. Next, we evaluated the gene expression analysis of camperferol, the shortlisted ER stress-related protein. These are the proteins which we got from the computational studies. PERK and IRE1 alpha are the proteins that causes cell death by apoptosis or autophagy mechanism. So in the conditions like HCC, the expression level of PERK and IRE1 alpha got downregulated. But when the liver cancer cells were treated with camperferol, the results demonstrated that camperferol significantly upregulated the expression level of PERK and IRE1 alpha in a time-dependent manner. Next, we have performed the gene expression analysis of camperferol with the several apoptotic genes. So, caspase-3 is basically an executional protein that plays a vital role in carrying out the apoptotic process, whereas BCL2 is an anti-apoptotic protein that plays a major role in inhibiting the apoptotic process. So when the cell lines were treated with camperferol, the results demonstrated that the level of caspase-3 were upregulated significantly in a time-dependent manner, whereas the expression level of BCL2 were downregulated significantly in a time-dependent manner. So on the basis of this finding, it can be concluded that camperferol may induce hepatocellular carcinomic cell death via ER stress-related pathway. We have also filed a patent in the second year, having a patent number this, and also we have published a paper entitled Antioxidant Role of Camperferol in the Prevention of Hepatocellular Carcinoma, but published in an antioxidant journal. Thank you so much for your valuable time and attention.
Thank you very much, Nidhi. A great job also with patent and publication, so congratulations. I have a question, maybe, because I am not an expert and naive, but it's about the in vitro assay you performed. When I have a look to your poster, if I well understood, it's a test on the capacity of the cells to migrate.
Yes, sir.
And in the control at 0, and 24 hours, is there a migration or not in this control? There is no migration normally in the control, or there is migration of the cells?
Also in the control group, we found that the cells were migrated from 0 hour to 24 hours, but when the cells were treated with camperferol, the migration of the liver cancer cells were inhibited.
Okay, it's not clear for me the migration, the difference, because in fact, in 2D, you're doing a scratch on the 2D cell culture, and after yes, you follow the disappearance of the scratch.
Yes, sir.
But between 0 and 24 hours, I
maybe the pictures are not very clear.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Christian. So here we are finishing all the 6 candidates who were shortlisted by juries, 5 candidates who were just shortlisted by juries. Thanks, Dr. Christian. And due to time constraint and little anxiety about starting at the specific time, we left behind introducing our jury, Dr. Christian Pelivaisian. I'm doing that thing now. Dr. Christian Pelivaisian is a biologist and toxicologist with expertise in the in vitro safety and efficacy testing based on 3D reconstructed human tissues. As scientific director of Episkin, he has been involved in the development of reconstructed human tissue and in vitro methods to assess the safety of chemicals, cosmetics, drugs, and medical devices. Involved for several years in biocompatibility of medical devices, he is chairman of the French AFNOR Commission for Biocompatibility of Medical Devices and convener of WG8 Skin Irritation and Sensitization of ISO Technical Committee 194 for Biocompatibility of Medical Devices. Dr. Christian had been associated with all the stalwarts who are now office bearers of Psi India, and she has been a supportive force for Psi India and the activities of Psi India since long. I would like to request Dr. Akbar Shah sir to say a few words about Dr. Christian Pelivaisian, who has sponsored the awards for poster as well as oral representations. And Dr. Akbar Shah will be elaborating a little more about Dr.
So, well, as I was telling you, so during the sum-up session after the plenary, Dr. Pelivaisian Christian is known to me for more than a decade. We meet in many conferences and other activities, and a lot of intimacy was developed because of a lot of prevalent compatibility. And particularly, Dr. Christian was interested in like giving training to young minds, young students, so that they would practice the alternative methods. You know, Dr. Christian comes from the company which is the Episkin. Okay, Episkin company is in France, and the company makes the reconstructed human epidermis, human tissues, which is actually primary cells which are laid on matrix, and the cells are alive, and they could be kept alive for a number of days, defined number of days, and they could be used for testing of like cosmetics or other chemicals for irritation and corrosion, as you would do in the DRACE test, skin test on rabbit. So the reconstructed human epidermis is an OECD approved alternative to DRACE eye test, DRACE skin test, and of course there is another model, reconstructed model for cornea, which can be used in the place of DRACE eye test. So Christian is the scientific director of that company, the Episkin, which is approved, the product is approved by the OECD. So with that tremendous background and enthusiasm, Christian offered to be associated with trainings in India. He has a lot of faith in university-industry collaboration. That is a very fancy word for him to be using in many conferences, and he used to invite me to speak about the outcome of the collaboration between Episkin and the Mahatma Gandhi Dornkamp Center, about which I was associated earlier, and the Society for Alternative Standard Experiments now. So, very nice person, wonderful, very knowledgeable person about alternatives, and a lot of biochemical expertise in biochemical investigations. One of the a very good friend, over and above all these things, a good friend of mine. So it is very nice that Christian didn't stop with volunteering to train people, but he even volunteered. He was so impressed by the functioning of our society. He volunteered to bring money from his company, the Episkin, and its parent company, the L'Oreal, to bring money to award prizes oral and poster at the annual conferences of the Society for Alternatives. So he is virtually the host of this session. That is, he means me in the company, the Episkin, and the L'Oreal are the host of this this session, oral presentation and poster presentation. Today is poster, and tomorrow we have oral. So, I mean, given to me, I go on speaking. I should stop. So the association is so strong.
Yeah.
The association is strong. I can't control. Speaking about Thomas, speaking about Christian, I can do endlessly, right? So, but then it will be monotonous for others. So I stop here. It is very nice of Dr. Christian to have accepted our invitation to be a jury for his hosted session, the poster award presentation. Thank you, Christian. And
thank you very much, Professor Akbarsha.
Patil, you could write.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dr. Akbarsha, sir. And thanks a lot, Dr. Christian. Here we are now at the end of this poster session. I would like to request Dr. Christian to say a few words about the contestants and their presentations so that we can wind up this particular session, and we will be then concluding the entire day's sessions for today. Dr. Christian, please.
Thank you. We wait, I suppose, to discuss after to give the name of the award. We don't say it we will discuss after, okay? Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much for the introduction by the organizer to this session. I think that this session is very important. For me, replacing the animal in toxicology will take time, and it's a question not only of scientific technology, but it's also a question of humanity and human, and having more and more people aware about the challenges, able to generate data, able to convince also the regulators. So supporting the Society for Alternative to Animal Experiment, for me and my company, it's a commitment, and supporting also the young researchers in this direction is very, very important. So that's why I'm happy, and very happy also to see the quality of the speakers and of the work. So it will be not easy to select the winner, but I think that with discussion with my colleague, we will make the best choice for this.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Christian. Dr. Christian, we are really thankful to you for sparing a lot of time for this session and then tomorrow's session also, and for evaluating the submissions through emails that were sent to you. So actual winners will be declaring in tomorrow's session after the finishing of oral presentations. For both the sessions, we will be declaring the award winners tomorrow itself. Yeah.
Okay.
So we will be welcoming you again tomorrow evening for this evaluation. Professor Raisuddin sir, would you like to say something at the end of this day? Sir, you have to unmute. Dr. Raisuddin sir, you have to unmute. No, you are not audible yet.
It's fine?
Yeah, now you're audible. That's fine.
Oh, okay. So after a long time, we are seeing Christian in virtual way. So nice to see you. You little bit aged. Any problem? You are looking little bit more grays are there. Huh? Can you unmute your mic, please? Christian, Krish, can you unmute your mic, please?
Yes. Excuse me.
You are aging gracefully.
Pleasure to see you, Professor Raisuddin. Also.
Yeah, I was also so pleased. So very wonderful sessions we have today, and all went well. I think tomorrow also afternoon we are meeting.
Right.
So thank you, Christian, for being with us and also making generous contribution to the efforts of society. And you can see we are doing very honestly, as much as possible, with too much transparency. We are conducting society. So people like you are around. Thomas was there, his wife, and so many speakers. So many people, many students have joined. So I think Patilji, we are now saying goodbye, good night for today.
Yeah, right, sir, right. So
Yeah.
here we are trying to conclude this session. I am thankful to everyone who was there since morning with us. We had all the Sai life members.
I was today that I had lunch also from Dr. Patil.
So thanks a lot, sir, for joining the live session also. We had president, vice president, executive committee members, live members of Sai India with us, and Dr. Christian also. All the speakers, they really put as much efforts as possible to make this entire day a successful day for Sai India's 4th annual conference. I'm thankful to each one of them on the behalf of DIPSARU, on the behalf of Sai India also. So tomorrow again, we are going to meet at 2:30 p.m. as per Indian Standard Time.